The session, if you could please make sure you're muted. Feel free to share your screen. I know when I'm presenting, it's always helpful to see see people. So let people get in here from the waiting room. Oh, Jeremy, you're so great. Already engaging. So check the chat if you want to let us know what program you're coming from, what degree. Throw that in the chat and that'll give our presenter kind of a sense of, and then, maybe are you a grad student or undergrad?
Yeah.
Or faculty, staff? That would be great. So, okay, well, we have a lot to get to, so I think I'll go ahead and start us off. Welcome everybody to the ChatGPT for Careers, using AI to accelerate your job search. We're really excited about this webinar today. And you guys are in for a real treat because we have an awesome speaker that I will introduce in just a second. My name is Megan Spalding, and I'm the director of the Albers Career Center. So we're the Career Center for the business school here at Seattle University. We also have partners with the Career Engagement Office, and they serve science and engineering and arts and sciences. So I know we might have students coming from all over programs on campus today. You have two career teams that are very dedicated to you and, want to help you with this kind of stuff. So beyond this great session today, if you're wanting to dive in and do more practice or, go a little bit deeper, we're happy to help you. And we're happy to help you with all things career related. So, but let's get to our topic at hand and our awesome speaker. So it's my pleasure to introduce you all to Jeremy Schiefling. I had the pleasure of doing a webinar with Jeremy this summer, or maybe it was last spring, Jeremy, I can't remember, but and I was super
We're losing track of
impressed.
time in this new
Yeah.
AI world.
And instantly I jumped on his LinkedIn and introduced myself and said, we need to bring you to campus this fall. So grateful to have him here. Just a little bit background, and I love this. Being a career advisor, Jeremy has had this great winding, meandering career, which I just love. So he's devoted his career to helping others succeed in theirs. He started out teaching kindergarten in Brooklyn, moved to recruiting top students for Teach for America, to leading education marketing at LinkedIn. He's touched the lives of millions of people at every stage of their journeys. Along the way, he's published a best-selling LinkedIn book. He also has now a best-selling ChatGPT book, which there will be a chance to maybe win that for our attendees here today. Served as a career coach for military veterans at shift.org, and also was a career coach for MBA students at the University of Michigan. He's produced the most viewed video in LinkedIn's history, which I'm curious about, and you might have to put that in the chat, Jeremy. And then he currently leads marketing at Khan Academy and shares his best career hacks on thejobinsiders.com. So without further ado, Jeremy, thanks so much for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Megan. And thanks to the whole team for bringing you this session today. One of the things that I always remind business students, based on my own experience at business school, is if you're not connecting with your career team, you are missing out, not just on the fact that they have such deep expertise on applications, resumes, LinkedIn, but the fact that they are the hubs of the Seattle U network. Megan and her colleagues are the ones who know every employer, every alum. And so I really encourage you to connect with them on LinkedIn, connect with them in person, and make the most of this amazing opportunity you have. So to kick things off in the proper vein, please use either the emoji button right there in Zoom to send them a lot of love, or better yet, because hey, it's 2023, go to ChatGPT and generate a sonnet in their honor. They absolutely deserve it. Please blow it up with love for Megan, for Justin, for Lori, and for Rebecca. Now, as mentioned, I've had this kind of crazy career. I went from kindergarten teaching to Apple to Google. I currently lead the marketing team at Khan Academy. And it was in that last role that a year ago, my boss, Sal Khan, came to me and said, Jeremy, I just had a chat with this guy, Sam Altman, over at OpenAI, and he showed me something crazy, something that I think is going to change the future of our species. And I was like, whoa, Sal, we are optimistic, bordering on naive in Silicon Valley. But let's stop falling for these things, whether it's AR, VR, crypto, all this stuff never really pans out. And then I used ChatGPT for myself, 4 months before it ever launched to the public. And I knew Sal was right. This was going to be big. So I've made it my mission for the last year to help top students around the world use these new tools to land the jobs they love. And all I ask in return is 3 simple favors. Number 1, get ready to answer some pop quizzes right in the chat. Number 2, if you're feeling especially brave, raise those hands in Zoom to volunteer for live role plays. If you do, you're going to get a copy of the #1 best-selling book on Amazon under the career and resume category. And I will send this right out to you in Seattle right afterwards. And then third and finally, just really do what I always told my kindergartners to do: get your hands dirty. If you've ever been doubtful about, hey, should I be using AI? How should I be using it? Now is the time. And so to kick things off, I want to start to get to know you a little bit better. What would you say has been the hardest part of your own job search experience? Is it A, finding the right role, B, turning that focus into an interview, or C, turning that interview into a job offer? Come to the chat right now. Albert, Alex, Connor, Colette, give me your answer, A, B, or C. What's the hardest part of your job search? I would love to see from every single student what's standing in your way. Okay, Natalia says C, Judy says B, Connor says A, Michaela says A, Mike says A, Joe says B, Joel says C. This is fascinating, Megan. We have a lot of diversity of comments here, which basically indicates the fact that we all face challenges across the spectrum. And I get it because I've been there. We've all faced that blank screen problem where we're staring at that demonic cursor in our blank Google Doc and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. What are we going to do with our lives? How are we going to write this resume? How are we going to get ready for that interview tomorrow? And to break through that moment, ChatGPT and other generative AIs are here to get us unstuck and moving in the right direction. And to show you what that looks like, let's start with the first critical stage, which is finding focus in your career. And a lot of people said, hey, Mason, others, I want to have focus. Well, why do you think it's so important to be focused in the first place? Is it A, because it speeds up your job search? B, because it leads to more success, more job offers? Or C, because it actually enhances your satisfaction once you start the job? So A, B, or C, come to the chat one more time. Why do you think it's so critical to have a clear North Star? So Pratik says B, Natalia says B, Henry says B, a lot of different B's here, but Paula and John say ABC, and they are indeed correct. Whether you're looking at data from the government, from startups, from the world's largest HR organization, every single stage of your process is enhanced when you know where you're headed. And so to get you that crystal clear vision of what's right for you, let's do our first demo right now. Give away the first copy of this book to whomever raises their hand first right now inside Zoom. So you can have a copy of that book just by raising your hand in Zoom, and whomever is first gets that opportunity, and they're off to the races. And this time it's going to be Hank. So Hank, thanks for volunteering so quickly. Feel free to unmute, turn on your webcam, and come and join us. Please, everyone, send a lot of Seattle love over to Hank. Hey there.
Yeah.
How are you, Hank?
Pretty good, because this is like my final quarter here. Like I have like 6 more weeks here.
Wow,
Also,
I can't believe it. You are like right there on the precipice.
Yeah, and also pretty nervous because like looking for a job right now.
Yeah.
I've been using ChatGPT also to help with resume fixing, ATS system, etc. But for the last 5 months, I haven't landed any job interview, so I'm pretty nervous about that.
Yeah, I get it. And just to be really clear, the point of this exercise that we just talked about, this idea of focusing on a specific path, is going to help you at every stage of your search. It's going to help you with your resume. It's going to help you with your interviewers. It's going to help you get jobs. So Hank, tell me a little bit about what you're studying today and what you're excited about tomorrow.
What I'm studying today is like, you mean like the class?
Yeah, your major, your focus. What do you?
Today I have like a class about business analytics, and also have a midterm in economic later on.
Okay.
So.
And then where do you want to go? What would make you so happy when you graduate in a few short weeks? What kind of job?
Oh, business and data analyst.
Cool.
Business intelligence.
Yeah, BI.
Logistic and operation.
Ooh, super cool.
If lucky, can be data science.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And so let me ask you a quick question, Hank. For all those roles you've listed, business analyst, BI manager, data scientist, have you done those jobs before?
I did similar, but not that close to it.
Yeah,
I used to work in a compliance analyst. It's kind of using um, kind of like scanning or something to getting pattern.
yeah, yeah.
Prior than that, I had a job in PwC working about credit rating. So we use
Cool.
modeling is using some tool like Python and SQL,
Yeah,
but for that and translate to data analyst is it's close, but it's not that
right.
close.
And that's okay. I want to be really clear. The whole reason you're at Seattle, that all of your classmates are at Seattle, is because you want to change your career, transform your career, not just do the same things you've done in the past.
Yeah.
And the best way to discover what's right for you is not just to follow the footsteps of your friends or what your family is telling you, but to find the things that uniquely fit you. So watch this, Hank. We're going to come over to ChatGPT, and I want everyone to do this. Whether you're a ChatGPT expert or a newbie, it is absolutely the right time to start using it. So the link is in the chat. Now, Hank, if you were to come into ChatGPT, because I know you've been using it a little bit, and you were to say, what should I do with my life? What kind of answer do you think you're going to get back?
Let's see. Let me try to do it.
Are you going to try that? Well, I'll
Yeah.
run it for you just to show you. Look at
Yeah.
this stuff.
Then report.
Self-reflection, set goals, seek guidance.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound actionable. This sounds more like a Hallmark card, right?
Mhm.
These are the kinds of things you might want to needle point onto a pillow because they're not that actually useful in the real world. So what if we were able to actually get you what you needed, Hank, which is the clear path all the way to the promised land? Watch this approach instead. So we're going to say, I am a student at Seattle University, and then I'm going to need a little help from you here, Hank. Tell me two things about yourself. Number one, what some of your best skills are. And I already heard Python, I heard SQL. And also tell me about some of the things you're passionate about. What do you love doing? Tell me that, Hank.
Like what I'm love doing outside job or my curiosity.
Oh, curiosity, very cool. So you're good at Python, SQL, and financial models.
Yeah, financial
I'm
model
very curious and interested in roles.
on how data can
Data, yeah, absolutely.
your life or can help us make decision.
Yeah, roles in data and using data to make decisions. And then anything else that's important to who you are and what you care about.
Mhm.
And actually, well, let's just stop there. Obviously, you can go on for as long as you want, but watch what happens this time. When we say, please generate 10 career paths that would be an ideal fit for my skills and interests, not a random business student, but Hank in particular, watch what we can do here. And by the way, I'm putting this into the chat because I want everyone to try this. Do this right now on your side. We're going to run this search and look what we get back this time. Instead of a bunch of random stuff or generalities, we get the actual things that matter. Now, some of these things are the things you just talked about: BI, data analyst, data scientist, but some are even off the beaten path: risk analyst, market research analyst, data consultant. Hank, as you see these job titles appear on the screen, are there any that you're a little bit curious about?
I'm curious about data engineering.
Data engineering. Okay, so you
Yeah,
want to know more about data engineering, it sounds like.
yeah.
So watch
Since
this.
when I see about engineering, I think it's like more about like school of engineering.
Yeah, it sort of has that appeal to you, which is important. You want to tap into that gut feeling. But let's complement that gut feeling with some data. What do you want to know about the field of data engineering, Hank?
What do they do on their daily basis?
I love that. What they do on a daily basis so we can understand the job. Anything else that's important to you?
What skill they might need to know?
What skills are critical? Again, putting this right back in the chat because I want everyone trying this. Burn it into your muscle memory. And look at this. Instead of just having a random series of jobs, now we're diving deep on this particular job. Here's what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. Here are the things that they have to know, be really good at. And now you're starting to learn whether it's going to be a really strong fit with who you are. But Hank, I will warn you, the dark side of ChatGPT is that we can get so deep into this conversation with AI, we forget to talk to real people. What if I could introduce you to Seattle alumni who are actually data engineers? Would you be interested?
Yes, I would love to.
Okay, so check this out. Every single Seattle student has a super unique advantage, which is if you come in here to the Seattle University page, and then inside that page, I'm just going to reload that real quick just because I want to make sure that shows up correctly. We're going to look for Seattle University, and then we're going to make sure that we are looking at the alumni tab. Yeah, exactly. John said live demos. Crazy. Okay, so we're in the alumni tab. Now, this is actually the tool that my team worked on at LinkedIn. And the whole point is that we wanted you to have access to discovering amazing alums all across the world. And so what you can do here is you can say, we've got 50,000 alums at Boeing, Microsoft, Amazon, but who's a data engineer? Who's doing that exact job? And check this out, Hank. You're going to discover that these are some of the folks at the most fascinating organizations: Microsoft, AWS, Accenture, startups. Of all of these firms, Hank, which ones are most interesting to you?
Microsoft then?
Yeah, absolutely. You're here in Seattle. You might as well check out Redmond, right?
Mhm.
So you come over to Microsoft and look at this. Data engineer at Microsoft. Ding, ding, ding. We have found your match. So we're about to reach out to Zach. We're going to hit connect. We're going to add a note. But then we realize, oh no, we're back to that blank screen problem all over again.
Mhm.
Another cursor, another blank screen. What do we possibly put in here? Hank, if you're not sure, who could you ask for help?
Production
And I
about
say
who
that, yeah.
like, hi, my name is Hein. I'm currently a senior at Seattle U.
Yeah.
Um, um,
Okay, wait,
yeah,
pause
so
right there. See
I'm
how you were
really
starting to feel a little stuck?
interested into the field of data engineering, but so far I don't know where to start.
Right. So you're just feeling stuck, right, Hank?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the beautiful thing. If it is the daytime, you should absolutely be going to Megan, to Justin, to Lori, to Rebecca. They are the world's experts at reaching out to Seattle alums. But if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, not even your dedicated career team probably wants you sending them a text message. So at that moment of crisis, you go right over to ChatGPT and watch what you do over here, Hank. Check this out. Hopefully this blows your mind a little bit. So we're going to grab everything on Zach's profile, and then we're going to come in here and we're going to say, please generate a LinkedIn connection request that is really personalized to this alum. We're going to paste in that profile. Let me just grab it one more time. And now check this out. Are you ready for this, Hank? Hi, Zach. I noticed your impressive background in data engineering at Microsoft. As a fellow data enthusiast and alum, I'd love to connect and perhaps have a quick chat to learn more about your journey in the field. And all of a sudden, you are off to the races because you're not stuck on that blank screen anymore. You know exactly how to break through. So Zach says, hey, I love Seattle. It was the best time of my life. Tell me if we could chat for maybe 10, 15 minutes so I can share some experiences with you. So now you've got this great conversation set up. How can you think of the questions to ask Hank to really make the most of that time with Zach? Who could help you generate those questions?
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, yeah. Now, here's what I used to do when I was in your shoes. I would come over to Google and I would say, Google, give me the answer. And it would give me a bunch of generic questions that were okay. They weren't terrible, but they were definitely not personal to me. So watch what ChatGPT can do so much better than Google. You come right over here, and this time we're going to focus on what we have in common. So we're going to say, hey, please generate 10 informational interview questions that are focused on my skills and interests. And so, Hank, just as a quick reminder, do we have to tell ChatGPT about your skills and interests, or does it already know?
You have to tell it.
Yeah, you have to tell originally, but it remembers from the very first message, right? This is the big difference versus Google. Google forgets everything you've done in the past, but ChatGPT keeps a running thread. So do we have to remind ChatGPT, Hank, who Zach is and what his job is?
Oh,
No, because it already has his profile. So it's
yeah.
off to the races there. So watch what happens this time. Now we have all the questions for Zach that are not just random from Google, but that are specific to you, Hank. Talks about, tell me about your experience there, but also tell me about the things that you care about. So for instance, you mentioned that you want to be focused on decision making and using data to make better decisions. Well, guess what? That's exactly what's incorporated. You said that you love Python, you love SQL, you love financial modeling. That's what it's added into these questions. And now you're getting this beautiful Venn diagram, Hank. Not just the Microsoft job, but you as a unique, awesome candidate and trying to see if there's an overlap that can help you build an amazing career. And Hank, you've helped every Seattle student build an amazing career because you've gotten them off to a great start on the most important step. Thank you so much, Hank. Congrats on your upcoming graduation.
Yeah.
And I can't
Thank
wait to
you.
see you crush it across Seattle, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, everyone, give Hank so much love. Blow it up with AI poetry, with emojis, and then keep the love flowing by asking your own questions. So if you've got anything on your mind, you can put it into the chat, or you can raise your hand if you want to ask live. Now, as those questions come in, I just want to remind you 3 things about using these tools. So you've probably read all these stories about the $300,000 prompt engineers, getting paid all this money in Silicon Valley. Well, here's the reality. It turns out that to use AI effectively, you don't need $300,000. You don't need 1,000 hours of time. You just need 3 tips. And the first one, and I have a little mnemonic for you, GPT. The first one I call G for generic, as in ChatGPT is a great generic tool, and we're going to use it a lot today, but it's not always the best tool for every job. So let me give you 2 different use cases. Let's say that you are excited to celebrate your upcoming graduation, Hank. So you come over here and say, what movies are playing in Seattle today? Now, as amazing as ChatGPT just was, it was powered by data from 2021, so it has no idea. However, if you were to come over to Google's Bard or Microsoft's Bing Chat and ask that exact same question, this time, instead of getting stuck, you get an actual answer because it's pulling in data from the live internet as well as its AI model. So if you need live data for any reason, head over to Bard, head over to Bing. Number 2, you are all in academia right now. And we know that faculty have a super high standard for sourcing. You can't just assert something in a paper or an essay because ChatGPT told you. You need the evidence. And so if you were to come into ChatGPT and say, what does the research say about a 1-page resume versus a 2-page resume? This is always a hot topic of discussion amongst career coaches, as Megan and Justin can attest. You will find that ChatGPT has a lot of thoughts, but they're completely unsubstantiated. We don't know where this data is coming from. We don't know if it's a hallucination. And so that's not going to be good enough. However, if we came over to another tool called perplexity.ai, ask the exact same question, this time we not only get an answer, we get the academic gold standard, which is citations, footnotes, that we can trace right back to the original source to make sure it's legit. So choose the right tool for the job and then prompt it the right way. And we've already talked about what happens when you fill up the prompt space with garbage, like write me a resume, give me a career idea. It's going to give you garbage in return. But when you give it specificity, both in terms of your inputs and your outputs, you're going to get a way better response. And no matter how good that response is, don't be afraid to talk back. Push it for better data, more data. This is not a Google search where we just sort of take whatever we get and we settle for it. We can always ask for refinements to make these even better. So GPT, those are the 3 ways to use these tools most effectively. Okay, I'm glad that demonstration was helpful, Judy. If anyone has questions at any point, please fill them up in the chat or raise your hand if you'd rather ask live. But not seeing those now, let's go ahead to my next question for you. Actually, we do have a question. Pratik, you've got a question. Go for it.
Yeah, so I've been recently hearing and reading a lot about the ChatGPT 4 and how they have the capacity to connect with internet on all of that, right? And a lot of other features. As a student, do you think it's worth the investment with all the added benefits that you can get with GPT 4, or do you recommend as students we stick with GPT 3 and then use Perplexity and Bard for the
Yeah.
other um, purposes?
Great question, Pratik. Let me ask you a question just to see if your student experience mirrors mine. Pratik, are you living on a
Yes,
healthy diet of ramen and free pizza that you find at events?
pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, so that tells me you probably don't have 20 spare bucks just to burn every month.
I
Now,
mean, but like
yeah,
when we were spending so much money for education, right?
that's
Like
true.
sometimes that $20 I could view as like cut from a coffee that I can purchase and see as, okay,
Totally.
once a month, $20, that's investment towards helping my own education pursuit. So,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't know.
I
Is
love
there
that.
any
Although
justification with
you
that?
are in the mecca of coffee, so I don't want you to deny yourself. That being said, the reason I called that out is not because GPT-4 is bad. In fact, I have it here through our partnership with OpenAI. However, the reality is everything GPT-4 can do for you right now, you could do for free somewhere else. So let's just take it one by one. GPT-4, the model itself, is also the same model powering Bing Chat, which is free. So just use Bing Chat. And again, it can also browse the internet for you. If you want to do advanced data analysis, where you upload a file and it evaluates the CSV, there's another free site for that. It's called Claude.ai. You could say, here is a CSV of all the people I've ever connected with on LinkedIn, which is something you can do, by the way. Happy to tell you more if you're interested. What companies are most represented in this file? Try to get a sense of the companies where I have a lot more connections than others. And it can do all of that analysis without paying OpenAI a cent. And then finally, just to give you a sense of the last cool thing that they've introduced recently, this DALI 3, where you can generate new images. Well, guess what? You can use DALI 3 through Bing Chat for free without paying a cent. So many different ways to get access to these tools without forking over that money and denying yourself that coffee. So please indulge in a little caffeine, Pratik. It'll help you out so much. Great question.
Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
love it, love it. Everyone, please keep those questions coming. I'm so happy to take those. But for now, let me ask you this question. This is going to be a fun one. So, if you were to think about all the things that are happening to your resume out there in the world, you're applying for jobs, you're getting rejected, and you're not sure what's going on behind the scenes. What do you think is the most likely culprit for why your resumes are getting rejected? Is it A, because they didn't fit the role? B, because they didn't use something called CAR format, challenge, action, results, which is often a preferred format for resume writers? Or C, maybe it really is important to fit on a single page and that's getting you kicked out of the process. So A, B, or C, tell me right now in the chat, why are so many resumes not making it all the way to a human recruiter? Hank says A, Alex says B, Pratik says B, Joe says A, David says A. I got to tell you, Megan and Justin and Lori and Rebecca, your students are super well coached because I know B and C are tempting, but the answer, of course, is A. And this is what's happening behind the scenes. No matter how great your resume feels to you, before it can be seen by another human, it has to pass through something called an applicant tracking system. This ATS, as it's called, is basically an AI that recruiters have been using for 20 years, long before ChatGPT, to instantly analyze every last resume and see if they match the most important skills. And when they don't, we just kick them out of the process because we don't have time for that. So, to fight back against that AI algorithm that recruiters use, you have your own AI for the first time. And to show you how to ace that ATS test and make your resume rockin', raise your hand right now. And whoever does that gets the next opportunity. And I've got to give it up to my man Pratik, because Pratik asked such a great question and he just raised his hand to take this on. So Pratik, go ahead and unmute, turn on your webcam. Let's do this thing. Welcome, Pratik.
Hello.
Okay, so Pratik, tell me a bit more about yourself before we dive in. What are you studying? What are you excited about?
Yeah, I'm a third-year transfer student at Seattle University, currently taking business analytics and
Ooh,
marketing
cool.
major. So everything is very new and just excited overall.
I love it. Okay, and then would you say that you want to be a marketer? You want to be a business analyst? Like, what's your dream job?
Actually, my dream job is not exactly a job. I've been kind of sticking with this answer for a couple of years now. I actually just want to start a farm, but
Ooh,
an automated hydroponic, aeroponic farm, because and those systems take in a lot of data to function properly, and that's one of the reasons that I want to study business analytics, so I can use everything that I learn into my own venture and marketing, because I mean, it's always important to know your
yeah,
customers and to
yeah.
know how to approach them, right? So
Especially in a commodity business like agriculture, we've seen firsthand how all those fancy new apples in the marketplace, the Envy apple and the Gala apple and whatever, have charged a
yeah.
premium by establishing themselves as differentiated. So that's true. Okay, Pratik, do you want to go right into opening your farm, or do you want to work somewhere else first to get that experience?
I definitely want to work somewhere else first, hone in all the skills that I, like everything that I learned, and well, more like turn the knowledge that I took from Seattle University, turn it into a skill set, and then eventually go on to my own thing.
Yeah, I love it. And so, what would be that perfect bridge job? What's that first job you want to
Um,
have just to get cut your teeth?
Yeah, something related to like project management,
Ah,
um, kind of similar to Hank as well. I know he's studying business analytics, so am I, and so something to do with business intelligence, data analysis,
okay.
would be ideal.
Cool. So let's do this. If you want to figure out how a company might be scanning your resume and which skills it's really looking to find,
Mhm.
what would you say is the source of truth for that list of skills? What is the single document that determines where that ATS gets its own data from?
My resume.
Well, definitely from your resume, but how does it know what to match it against? Like,
Oh, the
yeah,
job description that's posted.
exactly. The job description is the source of truth, period. Now, here's the thing. So often we job seekers look at job descriptions and our eyes glaze over. We're like, blah, 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 a million bullet points. But we've got to become job description detectives, and ChatGPT can help. So let's say
Mhm.
project manager, job, Seattle. Let's just find a random job to look at together. So here's a project
Okay.
manager for King County. This is kind of fascinating. And look at the stuff that they're calling for. They want someone with experience with, let's see here, Microsoft Office, someone with experience with project management, of course, policy development. Let's maybe choose something a little bit more business intelligence focused, because I think that's probably not what you were getting at, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do business intelligence. Okay, so senior business intelligence analyst over at Boeing, over at Amazon. Perfect. So now's the stuff that matters: SQL, business analytics, Tableau, all the stuff you would expect. What we're
Mhm.
going to do is we're going to grab this entire job description, top to bottom. And what I want every single person to do right now is come to ChatGPT and then basically put in this really critical context. Say, hey, I want to know what are the 10 or 15 most important keywords to be found for this particular thing. So let's put this in. What are the top 15 most important skill keywords in this JD? And what do you expect that you're about to get here, Pratik? What do you think it's going to generate?
Um, Programming, SQL, like basically,
Oh, you don't have to
core
predict the
words.
actual answers. What you're getting is the cheat sheet, the cheat codes, if you will, to the hiring game. This is the exact stuff that the algorithm
Okay,
inside the ATS is looking for. And you need to figure out if you measure up, because if you don't, you're out of the system before a recruiter has even seen you. So,
right.
everyone go ahead and try that with the prompt in the chat. Now, Pratik, this is a good start, but it's still generic. How would you
Yeah.
like me to review your existing LinkedIn profile against this threshold?
Okay, I'm game.
Okay, Pratik is like, what have I gotten myself into? Pratik, do
No,
me a
I'm
huge
game.
favor. Yeah, and everyone, please blow it up with love for Pratik, because it's one thing to raise your hand. It's a whole nother thing to share your profile with your entire class in the name of learning, in the name of love. So Pratik, what's your last name?
UPADHYAY.
Oh, beautiful. There we go. Actually, this is this. Let's see.
Um,
Tell me if you see yourself.
YAY. There's no A at the end.
Oh, okay. Wait. There we go.
Yeah.
Do you see
It's
yourself on that list?
Pratik.
Okay, let's just do Seattle. Let's make it a little more specific. Okay, here we go. See,
Okay, that's
LinkedIn
me.
never fails. There's Pratik. Okay, and so now here's the big question. If we want to have a comparison between that really critical cheat sheet that the ATS is using and your profile or your resume, we have to give it the other half of the equation, which means we have to grab your profile, all the stuff you have in there, and this time we've got to come back and say, are you ready for this now?
Yes.
Which of
Oh
those
boy.
skill keywords is missing from my profile? We paste it in, and now this is the moment of truth. Are you ready, Pratik, for the big reveal?
Yes.
Okay, everyone, root Pratik on. Lots of Seattle love there. These are the things that you are missing. Things like SQL, Tableau, data visualizations, machine learning, data modeling. And it's totally okay not to have all of them.
Yeah.
And I want to be really clear about this. There's some
Yeah.
fascinating research that shows that you're actually more likely to be interviewed when you're 50% qualified than when you're 100% qualified. Why do you think that is, Pratik?
The willingness to learn, perhaps.
Yeah, willingness to learn. Also, just the fact that a recruiter has to get you into the seat. It's not just enough to bring you into the interview. And if you're overqualified, chances are you don't accept the job, which is a waste of the recruiter's time. So
Right.
they want
Okay.
someone who's knowledgeable enough to be dangerous, but like you said, still hungry to learn more. Okay, so we got to get you to 50%. Which of these skills do you actually have experience with, Pratik?
I have experience with statistical analysis. What does stakeholder management mean?
Yeah, so this is basically working with
Just
people
like
inside
people.
the organization to keep
Oh
them
yeah, okay. I have
apprised. And
experience
yeah,
with that.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
I
this is the
have.
cool thing. You probably would never have called it stakeholder management, right?
Yeah, no, I would not have, but I've definitely, like managed people, worked with plenty of people.
Right. Now, this is why
So
ChatGPT is so fascinating, because ChatGPT is very advanced. But do you think the AI inside the ATS that was built 20 years ago recognizes communication and collaboration equals stakeholder management?
no.
No. It is basically a heat-seeking missile. Either you have it or you don't. Nothing else that's kind of fuzzy and in the same vein is going to
Right.
matter. So we've got to use that exact language. Now, where inside your profile, Pratik, could you get credit for statistical analysis or stakeholder management? Where does that belong?
Well, that would have belonged in my old job that's no longer there because I removed it recently when I revamped my resume and
Oh,
LinkedIn.
interesting. Okay, so obviously with your resume, things are tough because you have a limited amount of space.
Right.
But with your LinkedIn profile, do you have any kind of limits, any kind of 8.5 by 11 inches you've got to fit into?
No, but I kind of followed the trend of what I was told with my resume. Don't put experiences too old, and I kind of did the same thing with
Okay,
my
and,
LinkedIn as
and
well.
it is true. I will update that principle though. The rule is do not include experiences that are irrelevant. If you
Right.
did something 15 years ago and it was the most relevant, most important thing you did in your career related to the job you want next, it would be
Yeah.
crazy to take it out, no matter how old it is, because those
Actually,
keywords matter to the ATS. Okay, Pratik?
Actually, if you go to the show all nine experience,
Yeah.
you could get some with, yeah, there you go, with the program coordinator. You might get that depending on how I've worded those,
Yep.
perhaps.
So let's do this. Watch this. Right now, it does not say stakeholder management, but check out
Yeah.
this. We come back to ChatGPT. Please suggest 3 ways to incorporate stakeholder management, because he always wants a couple different ideas, stakeholder management into these bullets. We know it belongs in there somewhere. We're not sure of the exact language. Watch what ChatGPT does. This is so funny. We often think of AI as very quantitative, very sort of mathematical. But it turns out that AI and ChatGPT are terrible at math, but really good at creativity. Because look at this. It's figuring out ways to actually reframe all of these experiences around the exact things that matter to the ATS. Now, it is very tempting, Pratik, to just grab all these bullet points and paste them right into your resume.
It is.
Why might that be a potentially treacherous step?
Just to Generic and maybe not too personal to me, like
Yeah.
language wise.
Yeah, definitely generic. It turns you back into a commodity, which you don't want. And then most importantly, is everything that ChatGPT just generated 100% true?
Um, Actually, yeah.
Okay, it did a pretty good job. But the
Yeah.
reality is, does ChatGPT know what you did in Nepal 15 years ago?
No.
No. And the reality is it going to try to please you because it's so eager to please, but because it
Right.
doesn't have all the facts, it hallucinates. And so as a
Mm-hmm.
result, we have to be very, very careful. Every
Right.
single word that we bring off of ChatGPT and into our resume or cover letter must be vetted by us, not just for authenticity in terms of does it represent my voice, but accuracy, does it represent my real experience? Because Pratik,
Right.
when you apply for jobs, you are not just putting your own personal brand on the line, whose brand are you also risking? Think about where you're applying from.
Seattle University.
Seattle
Or-
University. And for all those thousands of future Seattle students, you have a brand to uphold, and you do not want to risk that brand or ruin that brand by being really lazy with ChatGPT. But that being said, Pratik, you have been an absolutely fabulous volunteer. So I want to give you one little bonus. I want to give you a little cheat sheet that you can use to open doors to opportunity. So I know the last thing you probably want at this
Yes.
point is more homework, but with my apologies to your amazing Seattle profs, this particular homework assignment is directly
Okay.
correlated with your ability to get
Awesome.
found for opportunity. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Pratik.
Thank you.
Beautifully done. Everyone, blow it up with love. Okay, so now I want you to think about all the things you're nervous about, whether it's about the ATS, whether it's about your LinkedIn profile, your resume. And I want you to put those questions and those anxieties into the chat right now. If there's anything standing in your way, do not go into the good night without asking it today. Now, as you put in those questions, I want to remind you that ChatGPT is great, but there are three big downsides. And to help you remember them, I'm calling them the ABCs. A, as we just talked about, is for accuracy. As an example, if you said write a resume for a career coach, the dangerous trap you might fall into is that it looks pretty good. Counseling, leadership development, relationship management. But if you're not reading carefully, you're going to miss that total curveball of pastoral care. What does that even mean? Where did it come from? And having spoken to OpenAI's own engineers, even they can't explain it. It's totally a black box. So as we talked about with Pratik, own your own documents, make sure they represent you. B is for bias. And there's two kinds of bias. There's social bias in the fact that ChatGPT and all these tools are not from outer space. They are from us, our own data. As a result, if you come in here and say, tell me a story about a kindergarten teacher, because kindergarten teachers are primarily female in our society, you're always going to hear about Mrs. Thompson or Mrs. Smith. But in doing so, you're never going to hear about Mr. Schiefling or Mr. Smith because we're not represented in the data that ChatGPT was trained on. And as a result, that prejudice, that bias, whatever you want to call it, shows up here in the outcomes. So that's social bias. The other important bias is temporal bias. The data from 2 years ago may not be relevant here in 2023. As an example, if you had a big interview at Google tomorrow and you did the very savvy business school thing of saying, generate a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, ChatGPT would answer it, but there would be something missing, namely ChatGPT itself, because Google is so freaked out about ChatGPT that they just launched a huge code red about 6 months ago because they were so worried that ChatGPT was going to destroy their business. And that was not on Google's radar back in 2021, so it doesn't show up here in ChatGPT. And the C is for confidentiality. We probably all heard about that poor Samsung engineer who lost his job because he leaked out confidential information through ChatGPT. Well, if you want to make sure that you are the customer of ChatGPT and not the product, as we often say in Silicon Valley, then you've got to make sure that you have all the right sort of checks and balances for confidentiality. And the most important thing you can do is if you're sharing PII, if you're sharing confidential information, click these three dots, come over here to settings and data, and then come to data controls. And you can turn off chat history and training, which means that ChatGPT does not store your data and it does not build it into the model. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about those 3 dark sides. Okay, let's take some questions. So Judy says, does the ATS filter out for age or other characteristics? No, Judy, that would be illegal. There are very strict laws in terms of what can be filtered, and they're focused on skills, not on age, gender, or anything else. That being said, the keywords are often stuff that people absolutely actually have. They just haven't gotten credit for it because they're not using the same verbiage or they forgot to include them. So that's what you really want to focus on. Great question. D says, how can you fit all the job descriptions in your 1-page resume? So D, here's the critical thing about ChatGPT. You want to make sure that the stuff that's on your resume is not completely irrelevant, missing the point, but absolutely nails the keywords that matter. And because there are only about 10 or 15 keywords that are going to be really important inside any given job description, then it's critical that you really laser focus on those things. And if it turns out that like 90% of your resume has no bearing whatsoever on the job you're applying for, you've got to make it better. You've got to tighten it up. You've got to curate it. Great question. Okay, someone's saying, do you believe that companies will use applications to check if applicants are using ChatGPT? So here's the reality. Having been a recruiter myself, working with tons of recruiters could care less. In fact, they're kind of happy about it because the reality is most resumes and cover letters suck. They're poorly written. They're not on target. If ChatGPT can help make them better, so much the better for recruiters. That being said, the one thing that recruiters cannot abide is having you lie on your resume, even if ChatGPT was the one doing the lying. So if you apply for a job and it comes out in the interview room that something on your resume was not actually true, that is game over. That is the end of your relationship with that company. So please, please, please don't worry about being caught for using ChatGPT. Like I tell my team at Khan Academy, if we're not using ChatGPT on the job, we are wasting our donors' money because we could be doing so much more. So it would be hypocritical to tell people you can't use it in your resume, but you have to use it once you work for me. But the reality is you have to use it the right way, as we've talked about. Connor says, when does a cover letter come into play as far as software used to scan resumes? Do cover letters help in the initial screening? So Connor, first thing about cover letters to know is that you don't always have to write a cover letter. There are going to be some jobs that say, do not submit a cover letter. They will not include it in the ATS. It has no bearing. However, if they want you to write a cover letter, you could definitely use ChatGPT because chances are it will be screened. So you could say, review my cover letter and suggest 5 ways to incorporate more keywords. And again, if you have all that already inside ChatGPT, it's super easy. However, the one thing I want to say, and this is really important, is that there are going to be a lot of jobs out there that you apply for over the course of your career where they don't tell you have a cover letter or have no cover letter. They just leave you guessing. The best way to figure out what to do is to come back to that paragon of Seattle business, Jeff Bezos, because Jeff said something that I thought was really powerful. He said that whenever I make a tough decision, and of course he was making tons of tough decisions when he ran Amazon, I want to come back to this thing called my regret minimization framework. And basically what this means is I think about myself at age 80. Maybe I'm lying on my deathbed. Who knows what he's doing? And I wonder to myself, do I have any regrets about stuff that I did not do back in the day? And if there is a job that you won't care about 6 months from now, let alone 60 years from now, don't worry about the cover letter. Just go apply. But if it is a job that you will go to your grave regretting if you do not get, absolutely do write that cover letter. So just to give yourself the psychological peace of mind that you left it all on the field and didn't leave any opportunity unturned. Great questions. Okay, one last question for today before we close up. At the final stage of the process, when you are interviewing with your future boss, what is the mistake that sinks more job seekers than any other? According to a survey of 2,000 bosses, it's one of the following 3 things. A, it's a weak handshake. B, it's total lack of knowledge about the company. Or C, it's that Mona Lisa half smile, non-smile. Which of those crushes more dreams than any other pitfall? And I'm seeing some B's from David, from Rose, from Joel, from Connor. Megan, you and your team have trained these students well because they have nailed the exact thing that bosses care about. And I get it. It's tough to get prepared for interviews, especially if at Seattle, you might have 2 or even 3 interviews in a given day. But to get you ready for prime time and to give away the last copy of this book, I want to see every Seattle U hand go up right now, right in Zoom. And whomever is first gets the final copy of this book and everything you need to crush any interview standing in your way. And this time it's going to be Natalia. Natalia, thank you for being so generous. Go ahead and turn on your mic, and let's do this for the benefit of every student. Welcome, Natalia.
Hi,
Hi, Natalia. How are you?
good and you?
Doing well. Natalia, where are you in your Seattle U career?
I'm in my second year of an MBA, so
Great.
I have 6 more months to go.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
And what would you like to be doing 6 months from now?
I would like to be a senior financial analyst or a finance manager.
I love it. Okay, so now imagine that you could be a senior financial analyst or finance manager at any amazing company in the world. If you put yourself in your future boss's shoes and the boss is interviewing you right now for this job, what are the 2 things that your boss is looking for? What do you think the boss cares about when they interview candidates? Natalia, are you there? I wasn't sure if she was frozen. Okay. Natalia, let us know if you can hear us. Doesn't look like it. Let's do this. How about, is there one other volunteer who would be willing to fill Natalia's shoes, obviously with the focus on your own interests, and we will go from there. So again, just put your hands up real quick and we'll choose someone to fill this spot. Sorry about that. Guess we lost Natalia.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Natalia, are you back?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Woohoo. Phew. Okay. Natalia, you probably didn't catch what I was saying there before,
No.
but if you had to imagine what a boss is looking for in an interview, what are the 2 things they care about most when they evaluate a candidate?
That I could present data in a simple way.
Mhm.
So usually you have to present financial data to other departments. So presenting data in a simple way so other departments can understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And so actually in that idea are the 2 things that matter most. Because it turns out there's been a lot of studies done on this. And the 2 things that pretty much every hiring manager or every human being is looking for in someone else is your competence and your warmth. In other words, do you know what you're talking about? Are you good with data? But also the warmth piece. Are you good at explaining that data, telling a story about that data, engaging someone else? And so to make it really simple, I've done the thing that every MBA loves. I've put this into a 2x2 matrix. And basically what this says is, in the interview room, you don't want to come off as very competent but cold, nor do you want to come off as friendly but unknowledgeable. You want the best of both worlds. And so we're going to break this down step by step, Natalia, to get you ready for those interviews.
Okay.
Let's start with competence because it's a little bit easier. If you were going to practice for this interview, how would you generate the questions that you're likely to get?
I would generate the questions. You mean on ChatGPT?
ChatGPT or look them up on the internet? Like, how would you find the questions to practice on?
Well, I would look at the description and I will reverse the question.
Aha, yes, yes. So basically what Natalia is saying is we know the job description is the source of truth. So it would be crazy to look anywhere else because if we said senior financial analyst job, Seattle, inside these jobs is the stuff that matters. And again, we're going to see a lot of keywords, tax, finance, accounts payable, accounts receivable, KPIs. But rather than get lost in them, we're going to do what Natalia said. We're going to reverse engineer them. So we come over to ChatGPT. And this time, look what we put in. We say, because we're always asking for things that are very specific, please generate the 10 most likely interview questions for this specific role. As always, the prompt is right in the chat, so you can practice that yourself. And then once you have that, you've got your questions. Now let's look at these questions together, Natalia. There's going to be so many of these behavioral questions where they're going to say, could you share a specific project or a specific time when you did this and when you did that? You're going to get those kinds of questions almost every interview. When you see a question like that, how do you get organized? How do you prepare your answer to be as competent as possible?
Or like describe the situation, and describe how I come up with the result
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
data.
So instead of just saying, here's what I did, you give them a context, you give them the essential information, you give them the happy ending. And like someone said, you use the STAR approach. Have you heard of that, Natalia?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you remind everyone, what does STAR stand for?
Situation, task,
Action?
and result.
Beautiful. And just for anyone who's thinking, whoa, that's kind of a weird framework, recognize that it's basically human storytelling 101. The same stories that riveted our ancestors 5,000 years ago and are still powerful today in a movie like Star Wars. There's always a situation. You know, there's a universe out there in a galaxy far, far away. There's always a task. Darth Vader is going around blowing up planets. There's a heroic action. Luke Skywalker flies into the Death Star to take it out, and there's a result, the happy ending that peace and prosperity is restored to the galaxy. That kind of roller coaster approach to telling stories is human gold. We love that. So watch this, Natalia. Rather than trying to do this all on your own, look what ChatGPT could do. It could say, please generate a STAR answer for number 3 based on my CV, and I'll just paste in my personal resume. And look what we get back. Everything we need to answer this question broken down into those critical 4 steps. And anyone can do that as long as you know the question and you have a resume. How does that sound so far?
Amazing. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, really cool.
We're doing really good on the competence front. There's only one challenge left, which is how do we broadcast warmth? How do we train ourselves, Natalia, to be incredibly warm even when we're feeling stressed out?
Well, I would change the answer so it sounds more like me. So,
okay.
Yeah.
More authentic, more engaging. But again, it's a little bit generic, a little abstract to imagine what that means. Let me give you an idea, Natalia. Rather than thinking of an interview as a gauntlet that we just have to get through and survive, what if we saw it as a chance to perform on the biggest, most important stage of our life? And so if I was to ask you, Natalia, who is one of the world's greatest performers in 2023? What's your answer?
I don't know.
We say Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Ronaldo, Messi, Trump. Oh my goodness, I don't want to go there. Who would you say, Natalia?
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift, yeah. My daughter and my wife just went to see her movie on Sunday. They said it was amazing. Amazing performer. And I will tell you, I've read a little bit about Taylor Swift. She did not just sort of naturally become an amazing performer. She practiced and she trained in a really specific way. She trained through a process that academics call deliberate practice, which essentially is practice that is focused on the specific things you can control and then making them better and better and better from one practice to the next. So not just a million mock interviews that leave us running in circles, but a mock interview that hones in on the stuff that matters. Check this out, Natalia. If you want to do deliberate practice the same way that Taylor Swift does, come over to LinkedIn, come to jobs, and then come to interview prep. And what you can do here, and by the way, the link is in the chat, is you can practice for any question under the sun. So if you know you're going into corporate finance, you know they're going to ask you about what motivates you, and you're going to practice your answer the same way that professionals do. You're going to record yourself because you have to understand how you're coming across before you can actually understand how to change that perception. And then number 2, it's going to give you immediate AI feedback on the handful of things that really matter. So it's going to tell you how fast you're speaking, whether you're varying your pitch, whether you're relying on verbal crutches like or a that detract from your speech. And not only that, you can take that same answer and you can share it with Megan, with Justin, with Lori, with Rebecca, even share it with a Seattle U alum at the company you want to work for to get insider feedback. And that way, when the big moment arrives, you're ready for the spotlight as opposed to be hiding from it. And that's what I want, Natalia. I want you to go out there and make the Seattle U world so proud. And I can't wait to celebrate your success. You were awesome, Natalia.
Thank you.
Beautifully done. Okay, I know we're at time. I still have a couple of final things I want to share with you. So hang on for 2 more minutes if you can, And obviously, if you've got to run to class, no worries. So first of all, I want to remind you that ChatGPT is great for the entire life cycle, not just for resumes and cover letters, but for exploration, for interview prep, and everything in between. And to get you ready for prime time, I would love to connect with every single Seattle student. Just come to my profile in the chat, then go to more and connect, and send me a connection request, even if it's generated by ChatGPT. Especially if it's generated by ChatGPT, that would be amazing. And if you want a book like Natalia did, mention that in your message so I can send you that book right away. That's number one. Number two, I have to give you lots of extra goodies because you've been so awesome today. So I want to make sure that you have everything you need to be super successful. And then finally, here's the last crazy thing. I want to tell you a little story. Back when I was a grad student myself, back in business school, I was an intern at Apple in the summer of 2011. And as such, I was at the big Apple Developers Conference in San Francisco, way in the back row where all the interns sat. And there at the front was the man himself, Steve Jobs. And even though we didn't know it, Steve was actually dying of cancer. And so this was going to be his final keynote ever as Apple CEO. But he was amazing that day. He was magnetic, engaging, all the things we just talked about. And as a result, even after the session ended, he pulled out one last slide, one more thing. And on that morning in July of 2011, Steve introduced the world to Siri. And even though I know there's a big gap between Siri and ChatGPT, I believe there is a direct line between the world that Steve built that morning and the world we live in today. So in honor of Siri, in honor of Steve, I've got one more thing for you. And I call it CareerBot 3000. Here's how it works. It's your personal AI coach. And what it will do is it will start by understanding what's important to you. You might say, hey, I'm a really creative person. And so I want to find a way to balance out the analytical skills that I've learned with the things that are important to me. I also want to stay in Seattle because I've fallen in love with the city. And here's my resume. And taking those inputs and everything I know about the LinkedIn process and the AI process, it will start to give you a sense of what's possible for yourself, different pathways, different opportunities. And for each of those, you can dive deeper. You can say, hey, I want the keys to the kingdom, all the keywords to pass the ATS. I want to understand what the job actually looks like so I can understand it better. I want advice on my resume, my cover letter, even my interview strategy, so I can be super successful from start to finish. And for every Seattle student, as a result of going to such an awesome school, led by Megan, by Justin, by Lori, you have free access, not just today, but forever through the link in the chat. And the reason I share this with you is not just that I want you to live a good life, I want you to live up to those famous words from Steve himself, which is, hey, we're not in business school for a long time. We're not on this planet for a long time. But during that window of opportunity, why not use every skill, every ounce of opportunity to make our own dent in the universe? So here's wishing you all tremendous success, incredible adventures ahead, and I can't wait to see that dent that you leave behind. Thank you so much, everyone.
Oh, Jeremy, thank you. Big round of applause.